Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our session today. Your performance marketing has a blind spot, and AI-driven language makes it visible. My name is Amy Heidersbach. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Persado today, and I'm so pleased to be joined by Erin McFarland for this discussion. Erin.
Hello, I'm Erin McFarland. I'm responsible for personalization, optimization, and customer-centric testing on the performance marketing team at Chase. Really excited to share some of the great work that we have done in partnership with Persado to drive some more data and rigor around our performance marketing activities.
Our agenda today that Erin and I have collaborated on is three parts. One is talking about creative as our last mile as marketers. We're going to spend the majority of our time taking you through some unexpected findings using AI-driven language, and then leave you with some thought starters about how you can bridge this gap in your organization. So let's jump into creative as our last mile. We surveyed at Persado about 400, a little over 400 marketing executives earlier this year. And what stood out to us among the many findings was that we are confident in creative's ability to drive results, but we are equally searching for how to prove it. We are doing some test and learning at various levels around creative, but there's really not the accountability and data-driven approach yet in this part of our marketing toolbox as in others. And in fact, we're kind of flying blind in a really key area of marketing where, we've been applying technology, data to optimize these other parts, targeting and segmentation, marketing optimization, promotions, and pricing. But creative is kind of this last mile to creating better customer experiences, better moments of marketing. And I know, Erin, you have a lot of heart for this, kind of approach into creative. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I think, we feel, at Chase that we've spent, as Amy said, kind of a lot of time on that front end. So who are we going to target? What is the segmentation mix? Who's profitable? How do we think about the offers that we put into market and the reasons to believe, and kind of really mature when we think about all of those functions. But as it relates to creative, really being able to test it with data and at scale, that's kind of been, a blind spot for us, and how we think about maybe putting some more performance discipline around that particular function. And this is where Persado has been such a great partner for us.
Yeah, thanks. We're all about ensuring that every customer interaction is relevant and driving business value. And this is an exciting time to be a marketer, as the maturity to our creative work is advancing. Right now, creative development is really still analog. It hasn't benefited from the data-driven approach, from the tooling and technology that the other parts of our marketing toolbox have. It's still human-generated, which means it's subjective, tends to have more inconsistency across channels than I think we would like as marketing leaders. There's some understanding when a campaign works and why, but not really mathematical, not as high a level of confidence as we as performance marketers are expected to have. And I hear a lot from all of our customers at Persado that even if we could hire 1,000 creative professionals, we couldn't scale to the degree that we want to. We couldn't learn fast enough, and we couldn't apply different approaches to our messages across all of our channels. But where we're moving is a place that technology can make every word and every message that much more effective and impactful as we combine, human and AI generated creative. And, it's not about replacing people, right? As one of our friends at Forrester, Thomas Hesson, has said, AI's impact on creativity is not about machines taking over what people do. It's about infusing intelligent technology into the creative process and augmenting what the capacity is that only people can bring to creating and executing ideas. So, with this combination, we have mathematical certainty, we have consistent on brand experiences, precise understanding of what works and why, and machine scaled output, which means we're learning at a higher rate. And something I know, Aaron, you're really digging into at Chase is how that customer sentiment is changing. Certainly, we've seen a lot of customer sentiment evolution in the last 12 months. How's human plus AI generated kind of showing up differently on a broad level at Chase?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, and I think when you start, and we'll kind of touch on this later, when you think about first introducing this at your company, I think a lot of our brand folks instantly go to, well, that doesn't seem very human, it doesn't seem authentic, it might not seem on brand, it might not feel like our tone of voice or how we would talk to a customer. And what's interesting is that sometimes the AI actually can feel more human than humans trying to relate to each other. And so I think, not not losing that brand voice. I mean, part of Persado is kind of at the very top of the house. They're taking those in. They're taking your brand voice and tone and kind of the type of phrasing that you use to your customers. And they're really, kind of overlaying different sentiments. I think we, especially during the last year during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of emotions from our customers. We've probably guessed, are people feeling fearful? Are they feeling, encouraged? Are they feeling joy? Those are things where instead of guessing what the customer sentiment is, you can actually use data-driven copy to kind of keep your finger on the pulse and really isolate that customer sentiment, and you can use data and let the customers tell you instead of trying to guess. And again, being able to do that at scale across a company like Chase is really, kind of the magic fairy dust on top of the copywriting.
Yeah. On the Persado platform, pretty soon after, we all went into lockdown, we saw that messages that were performing really well prior to COVID, messages of achievement in particular, were changing. The sentiment went to safety and security. And so, working with you at Chase and our other customers, we were able to pick up on that really quickly and change that sentiment to have every word, every message be more effective at an unprecedented time in our careers, right? Well, just a little more about Persado. We're the trusted source for this human and AI creative. We've been doing this for a while. We're not brand new. We run more than 40,000 campaigns with our customers, 1 million plus tagged words and phrases in the largest proprietary language database in the world that learns every day over 100 billion different interactions that leads to, great results. More lift than the controls, over 40% average conversion lift on the messages that are run out of the Persado platform, and billions of incremental value. I was reading a McKinsey report recently. It was forecasting that the impact of AI in marketing is going to, they estimate, lead to anywhere between 1.7 trillion to 3 trillion in new value creation. So we're all ready to unlock the value that lives in our words and in our messages. And there's really no personalization at scale without it. And we love working with you as well as our other customers, some of whom are here on the page. But let's jump into the unexpected findings. And I would love for you to share the first one with us, Aaron.
Yeah, I think when we think about marketing and some of the whether it be truths or myths that we think exist, we're going to touch on a couple of those today and how we actually used data to debunk some of the myths and also, kind of see what maybe wasn't, of course, as Amy just talked about, you're expecting lift and conversions, but maybe what are some of the unexpected things that we really said, aha, this is something new that maybe we wouldn't have come up with to test on our own. And one of those being, CTAs. As marketers, we're always really focused, especially in the financial services industry, on actionable CTAs. We're talking about, get started, start now, open an account. So we're very action oriented, and we have tested those, and those have performed. But we've also started to see that there are cases where observational CTAs do a lot more. Maybe somebody isn't ready to get started or to open. They do need some more information. They need an ability to take a look and find more. And so we saw this here. We've seen these CTAs increase our, lift and conversion like 64%. So almost 3 times stronger than ones that we would have maybe thought would have been clear winners, like our Get Started.
Wow, that's even better than the 41% average on the Persado platform. That's amazing.
That's right. And as you see on the next page, this is an example where we've used those observational CTAs in a real life case for one of our new investment products. And we'll break down on the next page kind of all the elements, because there's multiple elements that we tested here, but we did over 2,000 permutations in this email, which again, if you can imagine in your day-to-day marketing life, being able to test subject lines, then you're testing imagery, then you're testing RTBs, then you're testing CTAs, but an ability to do that, one, all at once, and two, using machine learning data, we were able to increase the conversion lift almost 30% and the click rate over 120%. And as that's broken down on the next page, you'll see that of the champion, winning creative, that CTA is the one that really contributed the most, which was a 94% lift in the conversion rate came from that particular element. And so being able to, again, apply it permutations at scale, find unexpected findings, and be able to isolate impact of various elements of our marketing creative is just an incredible opportunity as performance marketers.
I just had a flashback to manual multivariate testing and how long it used to take. And it's exciting to, as you were talking about, all the variables all at once, and you can change those permutations so quickly. That's exciting time to be a marketer with the kinds of tools and technology behind us. The second unexpected finding kind of debunks a myth. As we look at the Persado platform, I've always thought that shorter subject lines, particularly as we get more digital and we're inundated with more messages, were better, that they would perform better. And in fact, we always love to take a hypothesis and put data behind it. So we conducted a study. And you just see here, shorter subject lines, the 9 to 50, and on up to 76 to 197 characters, there's no correlation. In fact, the better performing subject lines in this study, were really the ones that were longer. So, shorter isn't always better, and that turns toward then what works, right? Emotional language.
If I can add there, I think we as marketers have heard that for a long time, like less is more, keep it short, no one's reading that. But being able to actually, test, have data, and then have that again at scale. It wasn't just one or two occasions or on one or two products, but how do we think across our entire testing landscape, and what are we seeing as trends? And this is, something I think as marketers, again, another myth kind of debunked.
I've sat in on many customer meetings since I joined Persado about 3 months ago. And if I had, a dollar for every time a customer said, if we were left to our own devices, we would have chosen the wrong thing, right? So the data behind it and the certainty is really refreshing. What we find is emotional language formatted and personalized, according to all of the experiments that we've been doing for years, is what's really working better than our assumptions of, how long a subject line should be. So Persado's AI platform can quickly uncover, those those messages, in this case, subject lines that are best for a brand, and we can quickly optimize it. And the way that we go about doing that is what we call the wheel of emotion. The wheel's been created by adapting behavioral psychology into 15 primary emotions that we, have mapped to 5 areas that also map to language. So the area of pride is one of those core psychological emotions that we turn into achievement language, trust into safety language. And that was really important since COVID and in the last 12 months. Joy and gratification are connected, and so in expressing joy, and when we see joy work as an emotion to connect with some or all of your customers, you'll see language like you're getting 2 times more, or we're treating you. Anticipation, it plays well in some channels more than others, and some messages more than others. We'll get into that in a second. And then fear and attention, sometimes that urgency or regret, fear of missing out, is really effective. And so emotions, are really the big difference, as to whether a shorter or a longer subject line works. It is what drives the Persado platform, and also customer engagement with the messages that we work with you and other teams to create. Erin, anything else here?
No, I just think, it's interesting because if you think about different moments in your life, or the way the roles that different products play in your life, how you might respond differently around this emotion wheel based on where you're at and the product that you're interacting with. Which again, I think is a unique way to look at the copy that we're writing, not just about the business side, which is what's the business objective, who are our target audience, but getting even deeper in and saying, well, like, how do we think about segmenting those customers? What have they responded to in the past? And it's really not a one size fits all in terms of copywriting.
Yeah, segmentation, when I started my career in marketing, was largely driven and defined by demographic information that we had, right? How old we were, gender, where we lived, education level. Then, we've been able to augment it with so much other behavioral, attitudinal data. But what we've found is, even if, you and I end up in a very same segment, Erin, even though we live in different places, but for all other reasons, we behave, we have similar attitudes. We could have very different language preferences. So if we're not, as marketers, identifying different language segments within our population of prospects and customers, we're missing out on really connecting with them. And that's what we're able to do and then help drive conversion. So the third unexpected finding is, language is not created equal across all channels. In FinServe, we have been, running these experiments, comparing landing pages with all other channels. And, I know you have some awesome insights as to how this maps to kind of the funnel a customer goes through and the journey they go through. But what we saw in this example is that the regret language, that FOMO language, right? Don't miss out on 40,000 bonus points, for example, was the effective driver to keep someone from bouncing off of a landing page. But if we applied that logic or that learning to all other channels, regret is not as effective to drive engagement and conversion in email, direct mail, social, or even IVRs. And we do, Persado cares about all the places that words matter and can help there. So, same for attention. Attention, like quick, here's a quick update. This is important language that, maps to attention, performs really well in all the other channels, but kind of is mid-range in landing pages. So the ability to use data, machine learning to quickly change, the message by channel is another great unexpected finding I know that's come to your business. How's it showing up there?
Yeah, I think one of the, if I go back to how content starts, you have a brief and you say, here's our business objective. And, what do we want the customer to do? We want them to take action. We want them to, like, let's just use, open an account, for example. And so you create the assets of that campaign. And even if you just isolate it even to digital, so you're going to do your digital website, you've got maybe your home page where the prospect is landing, but then you've got deeper funnel pages that talk about the product. Typically, the CTAs are the same across all the products, especially in a single channel. And what we found out, we, had champion and challengers, and we saw that even CTA performance, like our champion won on the, higher level top funnel pages, but the challenger CTAs won on the deeper funnel pages. And what we realized was even within the same campaign, trying to incite the same action for the same business outcome with the same offer, depending on where you're at in the funnel, like you also may want to tweak the language and the content, even though it seems like, oh, I'm just going from a homepage to a product page to an account opening. Even how closely connected those kind of channels and those efforts are. So that was really something where we said, oh, wow, we would have never thought that we would need different CTAs from step to step. Maybe it makes sense when you're going through the actual account opening funnel before you start the account, but not in the upper marketing pages. And so we've definitely seen how, whether it be steps of the funnel or channels, there's an opportunity to refine more surgically in these efforts.
And with that surgical application, making the channels work more effectively at every touch point. Yeah, love that example. Thanks for sharing that. And our final unexpected finding, thinks about another dimension of the customer experience. So I'll turn it back over to you for this one.
That's right. And I don't know about your company, but I feel like, email for us always seems to be the hot button. And I don't know if it's, because, when you come to, chase.com, you expect I'm going to show you our product content. But if I'm sending something into your, email box, how do I think about, how you may or may not receive that information? And so while we are very much as performance marketers, we're thinking about how do we drive engagement? How do we drive business outcomes, acquisitions? And what we don't often, may not always focus on is like, what are other ancillary outcomes? And one of those is like annoyance. So how do we just annoy our customers less? And sometimes annoyance can be seen in things like opt-outs. And so we have a new product. It's called My Car, and it gives you an ability to log your car and see its Kelley Blue Book and vehicle reminders on service, things like that. And so we were introducing this product and we saw really high, opt-out rates. And we thought, okay, this isn't good. What's turning people off? This is like a benefit. It's a new product. It's really, non-risk. You don't have to sign up. It's free. And we saw that just by changing, the content, we were not only able to drive conversion lifts and engagement lifts, which were great, but we were also able to reduce our opt-outs by over 30%, which is a big deal. If you think about Chase scale, we're millions. So the raw numbers of 30% can really make an impact.
And how much you've paid to acquire those customers. Good click, bad click ratios was always something I've looked at because of the investment in acquisition. You don't want to annoy them and lose your communications channel, your largest communications channel for many businesses, which is email, right?
That's right. Yeah. And then on the next slide, you'll see more specifically, what drove that. So we tested both the subject line, which you'll see at the top, and then also the body content, which you'll see at the bottom. So in the top, actually, the emotional curiosity is what really drove the subject line performance. But in the bottom, you'll actually see that something like, women with bikes, that image drove a lot more. We were able to isolate out some of the RTBs with fascination, as well as some of the CTAs. So it's really amazing how we're able to look at, the actual reduction in unsubscribes and then say like, oh, wow, just changing an image out or changing, a CTA or an RTB out can really help us drive improved outcomes for our marketable universe as well. And just like I said, it should be like less annoying. And so Persona has definitely helped us
I,
in that.
I love that we can assign data to each element of the subject line, which, is a combination of curiosity, fascination, messages, and no, little symbol at the beginning, right? The formatting considerations. And then do the same thing with the email body, the formatting in the form of a visual, even bulleting, right, is contributing along with fascination language to three quarters of the performance of this email. And that level of, you mentioned it earlier, surgical understanding and surgical application of words and messages is really cool. I love how in depth your data is on this.
And then I think too, just the other thing around capacity, like our marketing teams across the board are always, tight on capacity, whether it be our targeting teams, content, brand teams, and not even in our execution resources, right? And then analytics. So if you think, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this effort, we know we're going to stand up this marketing campaign, we're going to be putting this content behind it. Why not take it a step further and make sure that what you're doing is the best it could be using data to drive those outcomes? Because every other step of the way, right before the creative, you've used data to inform that campaign.
Yeah.
This is kind of that last mile of saying, how do we take it further? You're already going to do it. And how do we make the most out of those precious resources that we all wish we had more of? And so if we're going to do it, let's do our best job.
Well, that's a perfect bridge to just leaving our audience with some thought starters about how to bring this AI capability and how to, come that last mile and close the gap. Three key areas of focus. And the first is kind of people and the mentality inside of an organization. I think about this on two levels. One, as marketing leaders, we are expected to bring new ideas and be change agents. So that really speaks more to the mentality that we have to embrace and champion. And we definitely see that as a common quality for Persado customers. The leaders we're working with are out in front and willing to, charge into these, green fields. And then you mentioned people and upskilling and really using our available resources in the best, most productive way possible. Do you want to come back to that?
Yeah, and like we talked about before, I think there's plenty of work for everyone to do, but how do we do it most efficiently? And how do we use those data-driven insights and feed them back in so that we are arming our copywriters with less subjectivity and more objectivity? And I think that that's the other piece too, as business owners, as marketers, as we work with our brand teams, what, data and insights are we bringing to them so they're not starting from ground zero as they're, kind of concepting a campaign. So things that we do is like, hey, we've seen if it's acquisition and it looks like this in this channel, here's the trends that we've seen. So even if we can't apply Persado or we don't have capacity to test, we're at least, starting out with some of our, what we believe maybe our best copy. And so I think, part of it is, making sure we close the loop to insights and arming people. It's about, hey, how does this technology kind of supplement the work that you do today? Definitely not a replacement. And then just about change agents. Like you have to find your change agents. You have to find your ambassadors. You have to find the folks, within your firm or your company who are going to understand this, who are going to be part of like the transformation teams. There's the transformers and there's the run the engine. And these are the kinds of folks that you need on your side in the beginning to say, hey, I get that. There's a different way, a better way to maybe do business. How do I think about the motivation, the storytelling, the influencing to kind of get this going?
One of the places we spend a lot of time with our customers is helping agencies and creative organizations really up their digital or their data literacy and capabilities. And how do they form hypotheses? How do they think through, with the aid of a strong AI content platform and the data available to them, how do they think about their work a little differently? So I imagine there's been kind of an upskilling or data literacy and technology learning curve that you all have gone through.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. And then on the tech stack, I mean, Gartner is saying as marketers, we're only optimizing 60% of our tech stack. But what I think the point here is there are, solutions out there available to us, platforms like Persado, and some point solutions, but, really kind of significant value drivers that we all need to be considering to add to our tech stack. I mean, I remember when marketing automation was a new thing, AI generated content to drive personalization is becoming more and more on the agendas of our organizations. And now, we have the technology to add to it. But that also means that there's, really important onboarding and scaling. We call it a maturity curve, and we work really closely with our customers to move through that process together. What's your point of view on the tech stack and then onboarding technology like Persado or anything that's helping maximize those resources that you have?
Yeah, I think technology is key. I mean, all of this that we're delivering that takes platforms. And so if it's from everything from data and customer and targeting and segmentation all the way through the presentment of the content, and then also like different channels are probably at different levels of maturity as well. Like in some channels, we have an ability to test a lot of variants, in other channels, much less, right? Maybe only 4 variants. So I think having a plan to say what's on your technology roadmap, how can you scale it, how long is that going to take, what is the maturity level of channels, and how do those evolve over time, and then thinking about how do you get your stakeholders internally to adopt. How are you running proofs of concepts, how are you showing the value, showing the incrementality, and then being able to then scale it and say, hey, here's the plan, here's how we're going to scale it, here's how we're going to get there, is really important. But technology certainly is the main driver.
Yeah. And yeah, we definitely are proud of the fact that we can make an impact on that revenue, that all important revenue target, the billions of new value that, well, trillions, if you believe McKinsey, that we have the opportunity to unlock in our messages and in our marketing. But, we also know that even though the impact on our system can be in the next quarter of your business, the true maturity curve and to get to scale is a process that we work really closely with our customers on that takes 12 to 18 months. The machine continues to learn. The ability to run campaigns and do multivariate testing happens over time. Sometimes customer sentiment changes. So, these 3 things working in concert, I think we would, have you, our audience, really focus on. You heard some of the strategies and approaches here, and please reach out to either Aaron or myself if you want to talk a little bit more about it. Any parting words, Aaron?
No, just appreciate your partnership. We love the progress that we've made in this space, and we're looking forward to do a lot more. So thank you.
Chase is a luminary and a leader and an awesome partner for those of you at Adobe who work with Chase, and for anyone who has the opportunity to work with you and your team. We love it, and we hope you appreciated these few minutes to talk about closing the gap here. Thanks, everyone.